Killings in New York City subway systems skyrocket to highest level in 25 years, even as ridership plummeted. This is part of an ongoing trend we've seen across the country. Crime is skyrocketing, homicides, aggravated assaults, and robberies. These horrifying stories. A woman gets pushed on the subway tracks. A naked dude running through the subway. I don't know if you saw that. People in Philadelphia.
A woman was raped.
I was going to say, and people just watched it happen.
Filmed it. They didn't just watch it. They pulled out their phone, right? And that's right around... I'm telling you, my kids and I, we every weekend during the summer, we were on the train from Philadelphia going into New York, and we would spend the weekend in New York every single weekend during the summer. I have not been to New York in 2 years now because it is crazy. I mean, just case in point in Philadelphia, before the George Soros-backed district attorney Larry Krasner came into office, there are 6 county jails in Philadelphia, and they were at or max capacity. At capacity is a little over 8,000, right? Larry Krasner, George Soros-backed district attorney, Larry Krasner comes into office, and instead of it being at 8,000, he put it down to, I'm gonna round up, 5,000, right? So 8,000 minus 5,000, there's 3,000 more people who would generally be in jail somewhere, just in Philadelphia. I'm not talking about all of Pennsylvania, just in the Philadelphia county, 3,000 people who would generally be locked up somewhere and not out there on the streets able to impact law-abiding citizens. They're now out there. And when you ask Larry Krasner, why are you doing this, Larry? He says things like, oh, I want to do family reunification. Right? The broken home and the black family. We need to get people out of jail and put them back home with the people, right? But that's 3,000. What part? I'm sure there are some portion of that 3,000 who should not be in this situation. Is, wrong. They shouldn't be there. But how many of the 3,000? The whole 3,000? Or a smaller portion of that 3,000. That is the reason why we have crime at the rate that it is. Our judicial system has been turned into a revolving door.
They should put video webcams in prisons for people, because if they should be able to unify with their family and communicate with their family, everybody should, even in prison, in my opinion, if you want people to become better people as a result of being there, and let them do that. But if they're violent criminals, I don't see.
But don't put them back outside.
The fear of losing the country is that there's so much violent crime that the government can't stop it, and then we appeal to private corporations to bring in private security, and that's the loss. Then we've lost our country. Then the corporations run the show. So that's what I want to avoid.
This is all manufactured chaos. It is. Manufactured loss. I mean, it's just manufactured. And the reason, because they want us to be dependent.
Well, it's almost like there's this very massive, like a restart happening, like a big.
The Great Reset?
Yeah, something like that.
A great
but
reset.
It'd be called something different.
A great reset.
Yeah, maybe that one's fine. Great reset.
So what they say is what the activists were telling me back during Occupies: from the ashes of the old, we shall build anew. That in order to build the system they want, they got to knock down the old one. This is the idea. So you have crime crushing these cities. People are fleeing them. And then you can come in. What did Bill de Blasio say when the property values tanked? He's like, now we can buy them up and create government housing on the cheap. And so you have a government that implements policies that destroys a private real estate industry. Then the government comes in and buys it up for pennies on the dollar to create their government policy with new land they've acquired from the policies that destroyed them.
It's like the Soviet
amazing.
Union.
Yep, a lot like it.
So they did it with guns. They didn't even bother bankrupting.
And they're already so rich. And I used to always say to myself, running for office, again, I've had many careers. I'm an author. You see my book back there, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, Being Black and Conservative in America. A news commentator, military, was accepted into officer candidacy school, worked in the financial industry, worked as a adjunct professor of corporate finance. I've had a lot of different careers in my lifetime. But right before I decided to get into politics, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was homeschooling my children. We've always lived lived in really great school districts. I just believed I could do it better than what my babies would have been learning in the school system, especially when they come home and my daughter is being taught about same-sex marriage and my son is being taught about different family configurations in third grade. I was like, I think we could do this better, honey. And so we started homeschooling our kids. And so this was never on my bucket list of things to do, but we need to engage our government and we need to do it now. We need to demand better, not from Democrats, but from Republicans, because a lot of this stuff that's going on, I don't know if you guys even know about Podesta, Bill Clinton's former chief of staff, Hillary Clinton. Yeah, exactly.
John
right.
Podesta. Yeah.
Yeah. He is now, Biden has now tapped him to
be in his administration to specifically work in the climate change.
Yes. The almost $400 billion is now under his hands. And what do you think he's going to do with that? This is a very highly political figure. He's going to send this money into different campaigns and different organizations that will now, I suspect, who would now turn around and donate that money to these particular campaigns. Now, if I know that and you know that, I'm sure Ted Cruz and others know that. And why are these people, Republicans, who see themselves as president one day, not standing up and shouting this from the rooftop?
Shills?
Or they just don't realize that we can recover the carbon and reuse it out of the atmosphere with the carbon dioxide. Just pull the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Because they want to do electric grids. Like Thomas Massey was talking to Pete Buttigieg about electric cars requiring like twice as much electricity as a refrigerator, American's refrigerator. And how by 2030, if everyone has one electric car, how can the grid handle that? And Buttigieg is like, his response is, well, it's going to have to. And Thomas is like, no. How will we do it?
Yeah.
They don't have an answer. That's the old Seamus joke, that when you say, okay, you want good thing, how do you get it? They go, you want bad thing. Well, then you want bad thing. If you question them at any point as to how they actually will implement their utopian vision, they just say you're a fascist, you're racist. And
that it has to get
you're
done.
You're a Putin sympathizer, right? Listen, these people have a lot of knowledge, but they lack wisdom. Right?
No, I don't think they have a lot of knowledge or wisdom.
Well, no, they lack wisdom. They see a hammer and a nail, and instead of using it for its intended purposes, they look at a hammer and nail and say, look, I found a doorstop and a key, right? This isn't how the world works. It's not how any of this works. And yet, these people are now running our country, and that is a fact. And all of this is happening under their watch.
If you want to assume ignorance, but it also could be intentional. The reason we have crime skyrocketing in these cities is because they want it to happen. Because they want the economy to be destroyed. It's because they want to have a great reset.
Exactly.
It's either that or they are some of the most incompetent people ever. And when I listen to Janet Yellen is no dummy. This is a very smart woman. And when she talks about transitory inflation, I reposted today an article I wrote in November of 2021. And I was like, newsflash, this ain't transitional. This is going to stay. This is going to be very sticky. I spent 3 months with our farmers. I was like, let me just start off with the very beginning of our supply chain. And let me let you hear what farmers are saying about fuel and the cost of fuel. Oil right now is up 137%. And I'm like, this is not transitory. This is going to be very sticky. This is going to destroy lives. And yet Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell, they're all out here talking about transitory inflation. Now, I have to say, either these are some of the dumbest people who have ever managed to get their hand on power, or they know exactly what they're doing, right?
I think they know exactly.
And these are not dumb people.
Not all of them, maybe.
Janet Yellen knows.
Right.
Jerome Powell knows.
Look, when we were talking about this the other night, when Victoria Nuland said that there are biological research facilities in Ukraine that we're very concerned about Russia getting their hands on, we want to protect them. And then the media comes out immediately saying, biolabs don't exist. Biolabs don't exist. Okay, well, they know they do. They know they're concerned about them. And then we had a conversation with the guest where he said there's no biological weapons research labs. The U.S. isn't doing that. And I'm like, it's a semantic argument. Right. So it's you have these people in the media, in government saying the U.S. does not do these things. And then they go and do them, but then argue semantics about it. So my example was, if a guy created a factory that was building explosives and someone said, this dude's building a weapons factory. No, the explosives are for mining. And it's like, okay, those can be sold off and used as weapons, right? Yes. Okay, so we're having a semantic argument. You're making something dangerous.
Of course.
And like transitory inflation is semantic. Like it's transitory for now until it becomes permanent
they
later.
Just keep lying.
It's just another form of transition.
It's the meme where they're like, first, inflation isn't happening. Then inflation might be happening, but it's not that big of a deal. Next, inflation is happening, but it's transitory. Finally, inflation's a good thing. Here's how it helps. That's what they do. That's
now
the cycle
he's coming
of news.
out. I mean, I watched 8 hours of the big banks in America testifying before the House committee, the banking committee in the House. And it was astounding to me when they asked a question, do you believe Jerome Powell can handle and stop this inflation? They all raised their hand. Yes, we agree. And then Jamie Dimon comes out right after that saying the Federal Reserve is my judge, jury, and hangman. So of course, it was something that you alluded to earlier. They are controlled. The banks are controlled by the Federal Reserve. They're going to dance to whatever tune Jerome Powell plays, because again, as Jamie Dimon said, they are judge, jury, and hangman. So they're going to do whatever they need to. They're going to say whatever they need to say.
And the Federal Reserve is owned. Do you know who owns it?
Not the people.
Yeah, it's a private company that's basically adherent to the Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland, the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve of New York, and the Bank of Australia, like run through this node, the Swiss bank node called the Bank for International Settlements. I don't know. I think it's the same people that own BlackRock and State Street that own and run that thing. But it's also behind the scenes, and hasn't yet been like an audit or oversight. It's intentionally created so that we don't have oversight over the company.
Well, the Senate is supposed to have oversight over the Federal Reserve. To clarify their mandates would be one thing of stabilizing prices, but so they're supposed to have oversight over them.
How do you see the transition of our economy right now? What do you see happening? I see like the New World Order. They want to move to this liberal, global one world. At least I do. But how do you see America progressing economically?
I think we're in for some really hard days. When you hear the Federal Reserve chair saying, I am committed to destroying demand, now they're talking about demand destruction. That's how they coin it. And when I was listening to it, I heard several people say on the talking heads, demand destruction. I'm like, I still have family who live on that pig farm in southern Alabama. The farm is no longer operable, but they're very poor. And when I hear demand destruction, I immediately see faces. I immediately see who is going to be destroyed in this process. These people are uberly wealthy. This is not going to impact them very much. The Federal Reserve is the number one reason why we have income inequality right now. And now they are also creating a lack of an opportunity gap, right, between those who have and have not. That gap is growing. In the first year of COVID of 2020, our nation increased the number of millionaires by 30%. And I'm talking to people who were getting pay cuts, like 35% pay cuts, right? And I'm listening to the media talking about we're all in this together. And yet our nation, at one of the most, destructive times in our economy and lives, we were growing the number of millionaires by 30%. If you went into COVID with a significant amount of assets, it was the best thing that ever happened to you. As the Federal Reserve specifically began to shift wealth from the people to certain entities, right? They are the number one reason for this wealth gap that we have. And now we're looking to the Federal Reserve to fix what the Federal Reserve broke in the first place.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.